Good afternoon. My name is Ann McCauley, and I am the director of the Rural Opioids Technical Assistance Project at the University of Missouri with Extension. I'm here today talking with Doug Swanson, a labor and workforce development specialist with Extension, and Estrella Carmona, the county engagement specialist in nutrition and health, Bill Kramer, who is the past president of the Labor's Local 830 and a community advocate, and then Tori Turlin, a miner employed at Tower Rock Stone Company, who is also in recovery, and the safety director, Tim Daubelair, who is a supervisor. So good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm so appreciative of your time and to have you here today. I think I would like to start with you, Tim, and just ask you a few questions. I understand that you're a company that employs people in recovery and that you have some experience working with people in recovery. Tell me why you do this and what some of your experiences are.
Well, it's pretty simple for the sheer fact that when the money we spend and the time we spend with an employee to work in our type of business is a pretty big investment. And we look at these employees as investments. We look at them as coworkers, friends. We get to know one another. As far as opioids go, I don't know of anybody who wakes up in the morning and says, okay, today I'm going to start my trip down the road to be an opioid addict. And, you know, things happen. And just the fact that how hard it is to find good employees, how hard it is to keep good employees. When somebody runs into a hiccup, you know, I think it just makes sense to try to give them a second chance because, you know, not only on a company point of view, the investment, but even on a personal point of view. You know, I've known Tori a long time. We both live in the same town. You know, what am I gonna do if I see Tori at the grocery store and knowing that I might have been a big part of totally and completely flipping his life upside down? So I like to believe, at least now when I see him in town, I know maybe I played a part in helping him flip his life right side up. So that's you know, that's kind of where we're at with this.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Tell me a little bit about your company, Tower Rock Stone, and how having employees like this help you achieve your bottom line and meet your goals.
Well, again, it all goes back to what we are is we are the largest limestone open pit mine in the state of Missouri. We, depending upon the economy and where we're at, we could be anywhere from 5 to 10 size-wise in the nation. And, you know, it takes a bit of training in order to be able to safely, efficiently operate some of the equipment we have. It takes time to learn the quarry. It takes time to learn the methodology of loading, unloading, the different places these guys have to put these pieces of equipment, and having to work side by side with another piece of equipment that may be twice as big as the one they're operating. And, you know, we've just felt that when you've got a good employee and he's got that kind of, we kind of call it when he's got the whiskers to know how to do that kind of stuff, pardon my sexist opinion there, but we don't want to lose them. We want to do whatever we can to keep these folks.
So what would you say to another employer in the state of Missouri who says, well, someone in recovery could be a threat to my company? Maybe they think there's a lot of stigma and they think they won't work as hard, or they're worried about theft, or they're worried about lots of time off. And what has been your experience with this, and what kinds of advice would you give to another employer?
Well, I mean, I obviously, if I was talking to somebody else, I wouldn't use Tori's name per se, but I would basically look at them and say, I have employees who are in recovery, and quite frankly, they're a hell of a lot better employees than what they were when they were at the height of their addiction. And I think Tori right now has a greater appreciation for his life, which leads to a greater appreciation of his job. And that's all a part of it. It's not like our folks are able to get to, it's not like we have an open bank vault where we can get employees have access to an open bank vault or anything like that. We don't have any tremendous proprietary operations or any of that type of stuff. I mean, there's no risk for us if an employee's in rehab and they show up to work like they're supposed to, and they do the job and they do it safely and they do it efficiently, then an employee who's in rehab is just as good as anybody else, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you so much. I agree with you. How has your attitude permeated throughout your institution? So in other words, how does that kind of an attitude affect the morale of your institution or your business? How does it affect other employers, other employees, co-workers? Is there, by promoting this kind of a culture, is there more of an openness to share problems, ask for help? Does it promote loyalty to the company? What have you seen through this kind of an attitude?
Well, I've seen, I think we have a very good relationship with the hourly staff, in the fact that we've always, well, I can't say always, but for a great period of time here, if you have a problem, ladies, if you have a problem, come talk to us. Let's work it out. There are methods, there are paths to follow, that if you need time off, not only is it available to you from us as a gracious point of view, it's available to you through the bargaining agreement. It's there. Come to us ahead of time, talk to us ahead of time. We'll give you the time to work things out, because at that point, nothing has happened. There's been no incident, there's been no injury, there's been no accident. You want to help yourself, we'll give you the time to help yourself. We don't have a problem with that. And I think that has permeated fairly well through the workforce. We have hired a lot of people in the last 10, 12 months. And I think that we have somewhat of a disconnect with some of those folks, for the sheer fact that we are having a struggling time trying to get people together because of this COVID mess that we've been in. And, at a field mine, it's kind of hard to find a place to put 135 people in the same room at the same time to just kind of talk through some of these things that are available. So we've got some work to do there, especially with some of our younger, newer people. But as far as I think for the most part, the work staff knows all this. They agree with all this. And as far as I know, from what I remember, you know, when Tori came back, obviously he'll relay his own story, but I mean, everybody was excited to see him come back, have him come back, be a part of the group again, be a part of the team, the family, whatever you want to call it. And I think he stopped by my office shortly after, one day after he came back, and it was like, hey man, glad to see you, and I am proud of you. And I think he will corroborate me saying that. So
Thank you. There are employers in the state of Missouri who have said to me, if I had the kind of attitude that you're talking about, if I hired people in recovery, if I took risks, it would cost me more money. It sounds like it's the opposite for you. It sounds like that is not true. You haven't had a lot of absenteeism. You haven't experienced theft or anything else that someone may be worried about regarding hiring someone in recovery. How has it helped your bottom line? How has it helped your business financially?
well, again, we go back to training and experience. If you've got a person that you've invested money in, and if a recovering addict, or if they are truly in recovery and they want to make their life better, then they will make the effort to take the steps to learn how to do things right, to follow the rules, because they've had issues in the past, obviously, with rule following, and they've been at a much lower point than what they're at right now. Hey, I have a job. This is not nearly the lowest point in my life. And they just end up being better employees because they have a different outlook on life. There's, hey, my job's important. And if I can get an employee to say his job is important, then that in itself is a major step towards a better financial picture, because they're not out there. They care about the piece of equipment they're working on, that they're working with. They show up. They show up on time. They work the days they're supposed to work. And I don't have to, especially somebody who has experience, who's kind of been through the up, the down, and then back through the up, like Tori has. I don't have to tell him where certain places are in the quarry. I don't have to go out and grab somebody brand new off the street and say, you're not in the right place. We need to be a mile and a half over there. When Tori says, ledge 4 to phase 4, he knows exactly what that is. And we're not wasting time constantly having to remind and retrain these people. So just the fluidity of being able to run the business with telling people one time what it is they need to do. And that tends to be the way it is when somebody appreciates their job. When they feel like they have a dime in it, then they appreciate it.
Absolutely. What about policies and procedures in legal issues? There are a lot of businesses in the state that say, Oh, it will be very difficult for us to do what you're doing. We would have to rewrite our personnel policies, or we'll need all kinds of but clauses. But if this happens, we need to do this, and this could become a legal issue. What's your experience with that?
I've experienced absolutely no legal issues whatsoever with our policy. Our policy, again, it was formed in conjunction with company and bargaining organization. They came to the agreement on it. We put it in place. What I would say to them, well, we'd have to rewrite our whole policy. Yeah, you will. And we did. The only reason you may not want to do it is because you don't want to do it and you just might be lazy. I mean, that's the hard line. That's the line you got to take. And being in the mining industry, you know, you kind of have to tend to be a little hard line sometimes, and it's very a matter of fact, and it can be very in your face. But if I had a manager say, well, I'd have to rewrite the whole policy. Okay, rewrite the whole policy. What are you hired for? That's your job.
Is it worth it?
Absolutely. Absolutely, it's worth it. And as you know, sure, it might take seeking some legal advice on certain policies. And, you know, we're a government contractor. So, you know, there's some, you know, zero tolerance things that we have to make sure we keep in play. And, you know, that zero tolerance, quite frankly, the way I understand the rules, that's important if the person is on site. If the person isn't on site, then you still cover your zero tolerance policies. And in the meantime, you're waiting for that person to be able to come back and you're back in business.
Thank you. So Tori, it's my understanding that you are employed at the company and that you have been able to maintain your position while seeking treatment and recovery. So tell me a little bit about what you do at the company and what your story is.
Well, I drive a haul truck at the quarry itself. I have before. I used to do a little decking on our boat. We work on the river. We load barges. I used to do some decking. I've loaded barges. I've run a little bit of equipment, but now I basically just normally drive a haul truck. I've been there just recently, last month, 25 years now. So
Congratulations.
yes. And as far as my story goes, it's probably about 5 years ago, I ran into a problem. I got addicted to meth. It was actually methamphetamines. And naturally, you go about your business. I was missing work. I was late for work. But then there happened to be a random drug screen at work. And I got caught. Luckily, the company does have a policy where, like Tim said, that we can seek some help. And you know, once you get caught, everything changes. I mean, you first you start to look at, you know, who you let down. You know, let my family down. You know, and then I was actually at the time. I was president of our union, and I had to resign that. I did that automatically, resigned to go seek help. But then I was like, man, I let all those guys down. They all voted me in, and I let those guys down. And then just a little bit deeper, you look at yourself. I let myself down, you know, because that's not the way I was taught. And it grabbed me and it took me. And luckily I went out, seek some counseling, and I've been, well, that's 5 years ago. I've been recovery or free, meth free for 5 years now. So.
Thank you for sharing. What role did the company play in supporting your recovery, and how does having a job help you to maintain sobriety?
The company was, as soon as it happened, actually, we're in a union. So, and we all sat down and said, hey, here's some things that you can do to go help yourself. Some different things that, places that you can call, different resources that you can go get counseling. They were wonderful with that. They were like, go get you some help. And if you need anything, the company was, Tim said, you need anything, give me a call. So they were wonderful in that part. And as far as keeping the sobriety, I mean, the job is where I live. It's a union job. It's a good paying job for the rural county, the place that we live. And like I said, it's 25 years now. So I had 20 years in then, and that was a big deal. Thinking that I could have lost that. There's a pension, I've got a pension, and I could have lost all that if it wouldn't have been for the second chance that Tower Rock and Tower Rock Stone that they have in their policy.
How does their willingness to offer second chances and refer you for counseling and possibly take the time with you that you need during recovery, how does that promote your or affect your loyalty to the company?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if it wouldn't be, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be talking to you guys. And the other thing is if they wouldn't have helped me, and it's hard to say, I may not be recovery free. I may be still a meth addict. So because with a job like that we have, you lose your job, man, the whole bottom falls out, and it could have just been a spiral downhill. So it meant everything to me to put my foot forward and get myself some help, and then to be able to keep my job. So it really meant everything.
What about your coworkers? Does the attitude that's prevalent within the company promote a more supportive working environment for you with your coworkers? Or is there an attitude that, oh, he got special favors, that's not fair? What kind of attitude exists, and how does that help or hinder you in your work?
I don't think there's any, the guys out there, like Tim said, they were all happy to see me back. I mean, it's kind of, we're probably up to a couple hundred employees probably now. At that time, we were probably 175, 200 maybe, but it's kind of like a family. So whenever somebody goes down like that, and I even had some of my employees, call me and offer support while I was in my recovery, and all the guys were supportive. And I'll tell them all the same thing now, even to this day. I mean, it's a great policy, I believe. And if anybody ever needs any help, they can come to me, or they can go to Tim, and the help is there. If, like Tim said, I mean, if you want help, it's there.
In what ways has the support that you're receiving and have received make you a better employee? What happens if you had to continue working there with no support? How does it change you as an employee?
I guess with the support, like you say, it does bring a little loyalty, because if it wouldn't be for a second chance, I wouldn't have my job. So I think I don't have the records in front of me, but since that day, I don't think that I've missed any work, and I don't think I've been late for about 5 years. So, I mean, everything falls in line once you get the recovery, and you see what it was doing to yourself, to your work, to your family. And once you see that, then it's, hey, when that alarm call goes off, you get up, you go to work, you go do your job, you be productive, and you be a good employee. So it meant everything, that's for sure.
What would you say to an employer, maybe in some other part of Missouri, who said, well, that's just great, but you're just a rarity. You're just a special person. And that's not how it is for everybody. And we don't want to take a risk. What advice would you give them? What about hiring people in recovery? What makes people in recovery such great workers? What would you say to them?
I would say the second chance. I mean, if you've got somebody who's down, you don't want to kick somebody when they're down, because they're just going to keep on going down that hole. If you give them a chance and work with them just a little bit, I think in my case, maybe I am an anomaly. I don't think so. I think there's a lot of other good people out there that have a problem and they just need a chance. And if something like this happens to them, if a company would give them that second chance, I think they may be surprised to see how well, I'm not going to say 100% do, but I'm going to say the majority of the percentage would come back and probably be a good employee for them.
What's the number one thing that keeping your job did for you?
Probably my family life, my home life. It straightened everything out. I mean, it put everything in perspective as far as, I've got a little guy now who's 4 years old, and it put everything into perspective as far as you keep going down that road and you're going to look like that guy in that picture where he got no teeth and his face is sunken in, and I was like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be that person. So it just put everything into perspective.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your input. Bill, I have a few questions for you. And so I'm talking to Bill Kramer, who is the past president of the Labor's Local 830 and a community advocate. And Bill, it's my understanding that you stepped in as president when Tori was unable to fulfill the role. Talk to me a little bit about that. And then it is obvious to me that there are multifaceted reasons why a company should become recovery friendly. We've seen on all different levels the reasons that it's beneficial. From your viewpoint, what have you seen in regards to this situation that would make you agree with me?
Well, when you hire an employer, when an employer hires somebody, they hire them based on what they see now. They like that person, they hire them because they like what they see. And during the course of their employment, they get hung up in whatever situation and they go down that road and begin using drugs and they become someone else. When they are in recovery, they go back to that person that they were before. Always, every time they always go back to the person they were. So, when a person uses, they will miss work, they'll be late for work, they'll do inadequate work. And when they come clean after recovery, they see where they're at in life. They see that they've spent all their savings. They've hawked all their belongings. They've made a mess of things at work. So when they get that second chance, they take advantage of it. They want to do better. They've got to do better. I mean, it's in their heart. They're going right back to that same person that endeared them to their employer to begin with. So just because someone has the flu doesn't mean they're going to come back to work and throw up all over the equipment. Once the flu is over, it's over. Once the person's in recovery, that's behind them. That's my thought. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. So would you say that it behooves a business and a company to stick with someone who was a quality employee who may have a sudden relapse, because you know that when they get back on path, they will be the person that you hired again. And is it worth it for a company to put forth the effort to help someone through that? And if so, why?
Oh, absolutely. It's worth a company to bring them back. I mean, just as Tori was saying, you know, and Tim, I'm gonna just kind of work off of what they had said. Tori's had 20 years in of running equipment and being out on the river. We work in an occupation that is just riddled with hazards. I mean, and they're not, when we get hurt at work, we get hurt. I mean, you're working with steel and stone and heat and cold, and when somebody can navigate through all those hazards and do it for 20 years or 10 years or whatever the case may be, and they do it without injury and they do it without tearing up equipment, you know, why wouldn't you bring them back? I mean, you absolutely want them back. Every day that we go, I drive a truck just like, actually, we drive the same type of equipment. And we run into situations hourly where we're at. The roads get dusty. It's hard to see. The roads get wet. They're hard to navigate. Those big trucks slide around. You have to deal with something all the time. You've always got to be on point. You know, that you don't get with a new employee. That you get with time. And to throw all that away is that's just not right. It would not be in the company's best interest. They'll never get another 20-year employee out of hiring somebody new. You know, let's put it this way. They'll never get a 20-year employee experience out of hiring somebody new, you know, that doesn't know the quarry and I mean, we take into account every day just the grade of the road, just how steep it is, you know, and how much dust is on the road. You don't think those things through, but it matters, because when the water truck comes by and puts water on the road, that road becomes slick. Well, a new employee may not know that and hits his brakes. Next thing, he's banging into another piece of equipment or getting somebody hurt. You know, that's second nature to someone like him. You know, why in the world would anybody want to give up on something like that? It just doesn't make sense.
Thank you. Would you say that the cost of hiring a brand new employee and starting over, as opposed to supporting an employee, I'm sorry, like Tori, is greater than if you were to not hire another employee and support someone like Tori through the recovery process and give them the time that it takes to get better and then bring them back on staff? I've heard employers say, but it's so expensive to do that. Which way is more cost effective in your mind, and why?
Keeping your employee, absolutely, every time keeping the employee. I mean, unless they've got just a really terrible work record of tearing equipment up or being late all the time, you know, from the time you hired them, not since the time that they had their problem with substance use. But if they've been a good employee, they know what to do. You don't get a 20-year employee without having a lot of expense. You know, while it may just be a bent fender to the employee, that's thousands of dollars to the company. You know, while a new employee might take a load of rock halfway across the quarry and dump it, that employee might think, well, it only took me 15 minutes. Well, it's 15 minutes is a lot of time, especially when you got to figure that now someone's got to go clean it up, reload it, put it on another truck and get it to where it's going. So there's in our line of work, saving an employee's job is just, it's absolutely, it's a no-brainer as far as being cost effective.
Thank you. What kinds of services should a company offer? What kinds of supports if they are thinking about becoming recovery friendly? I'm talking about counseling or employee assistance programs or time off to get treatment. What are some of the things that you've seen offered that have been beneficial? And what would you advise a company to do as they try to become recovery friendly?
Well, we've gone with a 45-day off suspension, as I think is where we're still at, is 45 days. And in that 45 days, we leave it to the member or the employee to find what services best fits them. Now on their return, they're tested, and they have to prove that they are clean. Tori knows tomorrow he might get tested, drug tested. He might get drug tested a month from now. That's part of the deal. So we leave counseling up to them because they've got to feel comfortable where they're at and who they're talking to. I don't know. I dealt a lot with people that have addiction, and I know people are very paranoid when they're using. And if the company was to provide a counseling outlet, that employee might be a little bit skeptical about going there because initially, maybe not.
That makes sense.
Down the road, but I think if Tim were to say, we're going to send you to this counseling outfit, the employee might say, well, I wonder what they're going to try and get out of me.
Right.
So we've always left it up to the employees to find their own outlet, find their own counselor, find what works for them, whether it's NA or AA or whatever it takes to get them healed. And I'll work with anybody. I mean, if anybody has any trouble finding any kind of outlet, I'll work day and night trying to find whatever they need as far as counseling or housing.
Thank
I
you.
don't mean to step in on Bill's,
Nope, that's great.
but from an employer point of view, having a list of places, local places within reason, having that list available, having phone numbers and names available, the instant you're having that conversation with your employee that for the next 45 days, this is going to be your life, having that list available instantly to give to them is very, very important, because if they have if they have to sit around and wait around for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days to get some type of information, well, that's 3 or 4 or 5 days that where is that person's mindset going to go in those 3 or 4 or 5 days? Here you have them in the optimum position that if they want their job, they have to seek help. Here's the help. They don't have to go home and worry about, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And that just spirals into negative reinforcement as opposed to positive reinforcement. And what can happen in that 3 or 4 or 5 days that while they're sitting around waiting for information and a place to go? They need that positive information. They need that positive reinforcement immediately. They're hot, they're active, they're ready to do something. Don't let that attitude cool off.
Thank you. Obviously, your company does not subscribe to the belief that one failed drug test and you're out. Obviously, when you have someone fail a drug test, you work with that person. How do you think that benefits your company, as opposed to just saying, well, you failed the drug test, you're fired, get your stuff and start packing.
Yeah, I mean, our whole conversation here today has basically been about that. You know, here's a 20-year colleague, friend, acquaintance, somebody you're gonna see on the street. I mean, okay, you have a problem. You have a sickness. Go get better. We want you back. We need you back. You know, what goes on between his ears, being able to operate that piece of equipment every day, that's what we need. And that's the bottom line. That's the investment we made in him 25 years ago, and it's still paying off.
Thank you. So addiction is obviously a brain disease and not a moral issue. Nobody chooses to be addicted. No one chooses or wants, I should say, no one wants to be addicted. And sometimes when you have a brain disease, the brain takes over. How do you see that being similar to an employee who may have MS, or an employee who may have diabetes, or who needs time off for any kind of other physical issue or ailment? How do you see that addiction as being anything different, or do you not?
If that's aimed at me, there's no difference.
They give us
Thank
time
you.
off for anything we need. If Tori came to work tomorrow and said, I need Friday off to go to a meeting, he's off. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's part of their investment.
And obviously, Bill, this is for you. Obviously, there are lots of companies employing people in recovery who have no idea that their employee is in recovery, or how much that employee may need support that they don't give. So you obviously have experience on the other end working with groups that do allow employees to be open about their recovery and do support that. What's the difference?
I'm sorry, could you rephrase that? I'm not real.
You have experience here working with employees in recovery and employees who are comfortable saying, I need off next week because I have to go get treatment, or I've relapsed, or I need help. What's the difference between a company that promotes that attitude and a company that says, we don't want to know? Don't tell us. You know, we've got people in recovery, but we don't ask. What's the difference?
The businesses that don't want to know, they're not invested into their employees. I mean, bottom line, that's they're just not invested in their employees. I guess they got a stack of applications and they don't need the skill set behind that employee. You know, how will we work? I would rather work with Tori, knowing he's had a problem, and I'm meeting somebody on a whole road doing 30 miles an hour that knows what the hell he's doing. If a tire blows out, or he hits a slick spot, then I'd rather meet him than somebody that's got a year of experience.
Thank you. What do you think is the biggest hurdle to companies that are reluctant to hire people in recovery? What do you think their biggest fear is, and why?
I think it goes back to stigma. I think people are just afraid of who people are when they use and abuse drugs, which is not the case. I mean, you're basing a person's credibility on the worst time of their life, not the current time of their life. Who they are, as I will go back to before, when you employ somebody, when you hire somebody, you're hiring them because you like what they have to offer. you know, you don't hire them based on what might happen, you know, so you keep the employee, you work through the problem, and they make great employees. You know, I don't know, I mean, I don't own a business, but I wouldn't have any problem hiring someone in recovery. For one thing, Tim and I have been through several classes together. I've drug him to several of our union events. We've had some of the same speakers at some of our events that we have in the quarry. And he knows what to look for. He can recognize problems before they spiral out of control if he gets to knowing, you know, an employee. So, you know, I think if an employer knows what they're looking for and has the ability to talk to people, that's a great thing, you know, that they can get them the help they need. And that it all goes back to just being human, just talk to the people, you know, talk to your employees.
So education and an understanding of what substance use disorder is would be a key piece for anybody who wanted to become recovery friendly.
Right.
Okay. I am done with my questions, and I appreciate all three of you and the input you have provided. Is there anything I haven't asked one or all of you that you would like to share or add?
I do want to just add a little bit to the education part of it. Bill took me to a presentation that was given by Nicole Browning. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Nicole or not, but
I'm not.
Douglas.
she gave a wonderful, tremendous presentation that opened my eyes and gave me the facts of how people can become addicted to opioids. And I think anybody who sits through a presentation like that and who accepts the facts that they are given, how can they not be somewhat, I don't want to use the word sympathetic, but my vocal abilities don't give me a better word at this point. But you can at least understand that there's a very, very high chance that this person didn't get into this position because they chose to. They became addicted to opioids through some outside event that happened in their life. And it might have been, you know, a surgery, like you said. It might have been a sports injury as a child. It could have been all kinds of things that brought them to where they're at as an opioid addict, and just the effects that it has on people. I mean, I would say it would be very hard for any employer to start discussing working with rehab people if they don't truly understand how they got there in the first place, and the fact that they went down their path, or they went down that path, might not necessarily be, well, chances are it's not that they chose it. They just ended up in that position by what happened to them in their life due to some other event. And the employer has to understand that this potential employee didn't necessarily get here because it was their choice. And that's the only way that they can possibly start to become empathetic towards people who are in recovery.
Thank you so very much for that. That's absolutely true. Do either one of you have something you want to add?
I
Bill?
do. I was sitting here thinking while Tim was talking, and a question you asked me earlier about employers hiring somebody in recovery. You know, I would ask that same employer, if they're reluctant, would you hire somebody who has had a heart attack because of lifestyle changes? You know, if they didn't have make the best choices in their diet and exercise, and they had a heart attack, would you hire them? You know, they're in recovery. You know, if they changed their lifestyle and they're eating better and they're exercising and they've done all these things, they are essentially in recovery as well. So, you know, I don't see much difference in the two, really.
Thank you. Thank you. Great point. I appreciate that. Tim, anything else?
Nope, I'm tapped out.
Oh, okay. And Tori, anything else?
I do want to say something to Tori, though, on a comment that he made earlier when he said, I didn't want to be that skinny dwarf of a person with no teeth. Buddy, you were there, except you still had your teeth.
Right,
You were close.
right.
He's come a long way.
And you're living proof that you can come back from it.
Success story, yeah,
And
absolutely.
if I had anything to tell a company out there about second chances is that I'm living proof that it does work. I mean, if you give them a few resources and get them some help, they can come back and be a good employee.
Thank you so much. Doug Swanson also has a few questions he'd like to ask. So I'm going to turn the floor over to him and mute my speaker.
First off, Tim, did I understand you right? You said of 130 or so employees in the quarry?
Oh, we're pushing 200 now.
Wow, that is one massive operation. Back when I did highway work, you know, a big quarry was a dozen people, you know, mostly crushing rock for asphalt pavers and road rock and concrete. But 200 people working a quarry, that's a massive operation. Hot in the summertime, dusty all the time, cold in the wintertime. Yes, very dangerous work. So I commend all three of you for your career choices.
Just our haul truck fleet is 37.
Wow. That's a big operation, you know. And to do it, you know, for 25 years, Tori, you said you just had your anniversary, and Bill, you mentioned it might be a few years left, you know, before you retire. That's a good, yeah, that's a noble effort that you put in. Tim, when you were talking earlier, I denoted a sense of pride in the way you were talking about the way your company has committed to giving workers a second chance. Was I accurate in hearing a tone of pride in your voice?
Well, absolutely. I mean, if, you know, Bill and Tori, they're union, I'm company, but if the company doesn't care about the union employees, used to say they don't care about me either. You know, am I only there because I've got 32 years under my belt? You know, yeah, I'm proud because I know that if I have a problem, that I'm going to get the same treatment, the same opportunities as everybody else. And you know, I'm also proud of the fact that there basically is a very fine line out there, and it's basically just on paper of the fact that he works under that classification code, I work under that classification code, he works under that classification code, and that's kind of the end of the fine line. After that, we're a group, we're a team, we're a family. And my God, we got to do whatever we can to help each other out.
Well, very well said, Tim. I commit, very well said. Tori and Bill, do you, have you felt that kind of support from the workers or the union members in the way that, you have worked with the employer to find ways to retain workers?
Say something.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. Wasn't
Us older guys, I mean, especially, you've got the newer ones that are, that think they need special needs, but older guys, I mean, yeah, we feel that support all the time.
And to all three of you, have you had any conversation, like for Bill or Tori, have you had any conversations with other unions, or Tim, with other employers about the successes? Has there been any inquiries about what's made this magic work that you all have been talking about for the last hour?
Well, again, I think we're kind of, Tower Rock, I think the more I'm learning, is kind of on the cutting edge, maybe a little bit. And I quite frankly give a lot of that credit to the fact that Bill introduced me to a lot of the things that I need to know and I needed to know to become in the know. And I just don't know at this point if a lot of these other companies and HRs and all this type of stuff, I don't know that they've actually seen it yet. Maybe they do walk around with their head in the sand. And if they do, all I can say based on my 32 years experience is just wait. Something's going to happen. You'll see it. It's just a matter of time. And quite frankly, I'd rather hit it up front and head on first. And if nothing else, at least let everybody know that, hey, we know, we understand, we have this in place. Please utilize it.
Nicely put. Tori, you had indicated that your life was pretty much circling the drain, before you got into recovery. Had you not gotten into recovery when you did, you certainly would have lost your employment with Tower Rock. Is there another, would there have been another safety net that would have caught you? Would you have been able to find employment in your part of Missouri? Or would that, what would, if you had not gotten into recovery when you did?
My guess is I probably would have spiraled out of control probably for a while. Maybe I would have came to my senses. Maybe I wouldn't, because if I would have lost my job, would have lost my pension, and then you start spiraling down that road. Then you start to you lose your family members. You're doing whether you're thieving or you're just not being a good person towards your family or whatever it may be. I would say that it probably would have been a dark spiral for who knows how long.
A great example of not just a life saved and a job retained, but a family retained as well.
Absolutely.
One last question for all three of you. How replicatable is what you've done at Tower Rock to other employers? Is it something that you really have, Tim, you talked about, the advantage of having Bill in there as an advocate, helping you get the education you need to get, on the topic. Without a Bill doing that, does that mean no other employer can do that? Or, is this something other employers can do?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, other employers can do it. And I'm kind of hoping that maybe with this exercise we're going through today, maybe we can create the bill for other employers. And they can as easily go down this road as we did. It's not that difficult. The first thing you have to have is the knowledge and understanding of addiction and the problem. You got to pull your head out of the sand and realize that an opioid addict may be standing much closer to you than you realize. And you just have to, the easier that you can make it on an employer, I think you will have great success. And by easier, I mean showing them, educating them, and giving them the resources, not dollars, but the resources that they can take and carry on to give to their employees, I think is the key.
Well, thank you all. You're all heroes to me. And I don't want to undersell the role Tower Rock plays. Most employers, if they're interested, they want to know if somebody else has done it first. If the fact that Tower Rock has done it, you're willing to go public about talking about the successes, you are going to make a difference. Your company is going to make a difference for a lot of other companies. So I thank you all for doing what you're doing today, and keep hanging in, keep doing it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your questions and input, Doug. I also, go ahead.
I got one more thing to say. Thank you for providing this platform to provide to other employers to get them on the right track. Because it's going to be you guys that are going to show what is being done and what works. So thank you. Thank you, Australia.
Well, thank you. And with that, I want to turn it over to Estrella for just a moment. Estrella is our county engagement specialist. And as I said, she's in nutrition and health in St. Genevieve, St. Francis, and Washington counties. She actually was the catalyst behind putting this meeting together today. And I'd like to give you an opportunity to ask some questions as well and share your input. And to say thank you for helping us to meet these gentlemen.
Okay, well, I am just a liaison. I work in the community to connect people to resources within MU Extension, and how wonderful that there is a need in the community. We have people that are implementing some of these practices that we hope other employers implement themselves. And so I'm just happy to connect people to additional resources that are offered here at MU Extension.
Have you watched cultures change as you've become more involved in working in substance use disorder and in working with companies like Tower Rock? What have you witnessed happening?
What I have found is there are more people than I thought to start that were as passionate as I am about helping our community in different sectors. So it's not just those of us that have accepted a job to help others like us at MU Extension, but the people that work within our communities and our manufacturing companies, our mining companies, work in the community in a variety of different ways. So all the different industries.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for putting this together. Are there any questions you have that we haven't asked?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, well, I would want to give my sincerest thanks, as Doug did, to each of you, and to tell you that your stories are what is going to allow the state of Missouri to move forward and to we're stuck right now. And so many employers are stuck. And your stories are going to be the incentive that employers need and that people need to do something about both the workforce shortage and the stigma that goes with not wanting to hire someone just because they've experienced a specific problem or issue. So for that, I thank you so much